Hello everybody, this is Royston over here. It has been a while since I last did up a video for you guys, so I thought that it might be an opportune time to just do a short video on a particular news flow that came out last evening. But do note that this is not a recommendation to be buying or selling any stocks. Please do your own necessary due diligence. So the news that actually came out last evening was with regards to two particular counters that were newly included into the S&P 500. So the two counters were Workday as well as Apollo Global Management. Workday ticker WDAY, Apollo Global Management APO. So these two counters have been newly added into the S&P 500, or that was what was being announced last evening. And the actual day of inclusion, I believe the actual day of inclusion will be on the 23rd of December, before the start of trading on Monday 23rd of December. Now these two shares will actually be replacing two other counters, Corvo as well as Edmonton, which were previously in the S&P 500, and these two will be removed and will be added into the S&P 500's small cap 600. Alright, so this is basically something quite interesting. The question then is, what is going to happen to the price performance of these two shares thereafter? Does it mean that including into the S&P 500 will mean that the share price trajectory would be pretty much very positive moving forward? Because we all know that funds will potentially be buying into these shares if they are looking to closely replicate the performance of the S&P 500. So a lot of passive funds will be looking to enter into these counters. However, it is not a sure thing that the share price will be moving higher for these two counters. Now let's take a look at two recent examples for Palantir as well as ERI that have been included into the S&P 500 when it was first announced back in September. So when it was first announced back in September, both share price actually saw appreciation. For Palantir, the appreciation was more significant, whereas for ERI, the appreciation was more marginal. And since the actual point of inclusion into the S&P 500 on 23rd of September, we saw that Palantir share price continues to rally higher, whereas that of ERI actually dips. So it is not a sure thing that after the inclusion that the share price performance of those newly included counters will be positive. So do take note on that basis. However, for these two counters, I'm actually quite positive on their longer term fundamentals. My students have actually heard me talking about Apollo Global Management quite a while. We have been looking to trade it on both a long term as well as on a short term basis. So APO has actually done pretty well. Today, if you have gone onto the chart performance of APO, you will see that it is a very nice uptrend. Now, the counter that I want to actually be focusing a little bit more attention on is Workday. And the reason is because this is a counter that has just also popped out on my medium-term earnings surprise list. Now, this is a list that I shared freely with my options students. So this particular list is updated on a daily basis, and my options students basically have access to this list that is basically updated on a daily basis. They can see which are the counters that have been newly added, which are the counters that have been recently removed. Now, this list is quite long. You can see that there's actually many counters, and if you have actually vested into some of those names when they have just entered into the list 50 over days ago, 80 over days ago, for example, your returns would have been quite decent. Now, the reason why I highlighted WDAY is because it has just entered into this list. So you can see over here, Workday has just entered into this list. So just 2 days ago. So it is new entry over here. And what I taught my option students is basically to use this list of stocks, especially those that have been recently added into it, and reference it to the Traders GPS for better timing purpose. So today, if we are to refer back to the Traders GPS platform, let's take a look at the Traders GPS platform. And we type into this. Okay, it is already showing the Workday. And you can see that over the last 6 months, it is in a decent uptrend, not exactly a very pretty uptrend, but at least it is achieving higher lows over the past 6 months. So that's a positive sign, and the current share price is in fact at the 6 months high. So it is looking quite positive, and this pop up over here was because of last evening news flow that the share price is going to be included in the S&P 500, even though it has ended weaker for the day because of general market sentiment. So a lot of stocks have actually ended weaker last evening. But this is still looking pretty positive, and today if you reference it to the Traders GPS position daily strategy, you can see that this is basically the first green arrow with TIF mode bullish. So this is the first signal that you'll be taking. You'll be marking high, and the rough entry price would have been roughly about $272. Now it is not smooth flowing, as you can see that the share price actually gaps down. This is a result of, I would say, earnings. Earnings might not have actually been too positive, or the street might have too high an expectation of earnings, dip down, but subsequently over the coming days it has actually closed that gap and in fact appreciated higher. And last evening news actually gave it a bump higher to break its all-time, not say all-time high, but 6 months high on that basis. So this is the first signal, and you have entered roughly about 272, and this today is last evening, that would be the second signal. So what you then need to do is basically to mark high and to only enter if the share price actually appreciates above the $295 approximate level. So that would have been what you should be doing if, let's say, you are combining this list together with that of the Traders GPS as a timing reference. So WDAY is definitely on my watch list. It is looking pretty interesting, but what I would like to have is basically some form of confirmation that this second entry is going to be valid if share price subsequently breaks this last high. If not, I might not be looking to enter. For those of you who have already entered based on the first green arrow with TIF, let's say you have identified this counter, very nice setup, and you are looking to trade it, you would have entered roughly at about $272, and you have placed a stop loss based on the dynamic stop loss 2 times that you guys have been taught, somewhere around the $252 level. So you enter at 272, the stop loss would have been 252, and that's how basically you should be disciplined in terms of using the Traders GPS resources to execute your trades. Okay, so this is an interesting counter. I am not certain if moving forward the momentum can continue, but so far for WDAY it still looks pretty positive. Now this is not a stock that is at an all-time high yet. The all-time high, I believe, was somewhere around the 200 or 310 level. So that would have been an all-time high, and this second signal over here, entry price at about 295. If the share price actually does breach that level tonight, this evening, the next resistance level would be at 311, and thereafter the momentum will likely be building up pretty strongly. So this counter, the momentum is looking pretty good, and whether or not it's going to follow the trajectory of Palantir, which after inclusion into the S&P 500 basically saw its share price rockets very strongly. I'm sure that this is a stock that many of you would be quite familiar with, especially my option students. Recently, there have been some trades, or students have actually executed trades on Palantir, some generating 300 to 500% return on their option trades. Alright, so I hope that this could be the next Palantir, but again, I would definitely be looking to follow the trade signal pretty closely on that basis and only execute if the share price continues to show strong momentum, reaching the 295 level. With that, thank you very much for your attention. I hope that you have enjoyed today's video. I will be looking to identify more of this kind of trade opportunities for you guys. But again, please do your own necessary due diligence. This might not be suitable for everybody. This is a trade that is meant to last roughly about 6 to 9 months based on position daily strategy, what you guys have been taught. So this is not a short-term in and out trade that you should be looking to take, at least not based on this kind of structure. So for my students, they have got access to this medium-term earning surprise list. I told them that this is basically a list that's been filtered based on certain fundamental strength criteria, and it will be ideal if they can actually package it alongside with some timing momentum using the Trader GPS software. With that, I will see you guys in the next video.